So I'm going to talk about the real first-time buyers. And when I talk about real first-time buyers, I mean the first-time buyers that are getting onto the housing ladder. So these are not the guys that we talk about all the time that can't get onto the housing ladders. These are the ones that are bucking the trend entirely. So first thing I want to just check with you is, does anybody know what the average commute time is into London?
1 hour.
74.2 minutes is the exact average time of a commute into London. I live in York and I can get into London in an hour and a half. So, you know, it's kind of, you guys suffer daily. But also another stat that I came across, which I really quite like this one, is that on average, throughout our lifetime, we will spend 10,634 hours travelling to and from work. 10,634 hours. But a more fascinating fact, which actually doesn't apply to me because I take 20 minutes to get ready and I'm out of the door, but women, on average, will take 11,376 hours of their life putting on the slap. So just a bit of a comparison though, it actually takes less time to get to work than it does for most women to get ready. So anyway, but as I say, not me, I'm a 20-minute girl. So agenda, what are we going to talk about today? So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the market looks like, and I'm going to talk about some opportunities within this market as well, which is probably going to grab you more so than what it looks like just at the minute. So I'm going to talk about the variances in the regions. So I have put on there, not everybody wants to live in London. I don't want to live in London. Not everybody wants to live in London. But we seem to be fixated with the fact that everything happens in London and it dictates what we do in the rest of the country. So I'm going to show you some regional variances there. I'm also going to talk to you about some demographics of what our first-time buyers really do look like. So not what we think they look like, but what actually they do look like. Bank of Mum and Dad, this is the piece that Legal & General have done quite recently. In fact, I've got a copy of it here. If you haven't already seen this, it's really worthwhile having a look on their website and downloading it because there's some fantastic stats in there and again give you some really good insight as to what's going on in that market. Friends buying together, this is a real cute niche that's going on within this first-time buyer market, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that. And then intermediaries, what's in it for you guys, what do you need to look for, what opportunities are out there as well. Quite often there's lots of things that are sat in front of us that we actually don't see. So, regional variances, quite a busy slide this one, so forgive me for this, but it shows you the majority, in fact 60% of the UK is affordable. So 40% of it we deem unaffordable, but I'll talk to you a bit more about that as well. So if we look at this, the average salary within the North East is just shy of £30,000. An average minimum deposit will be £15,500. So you can see from that, actually, it's reasonably well affordable until you get down to that southeast piece. And then we all know this is the bit that we seem to focus on entirely in saying that this is not an affordable country to buy in. Okay? Is it unaffordable? So is London unaffordable? I've been spending quite a bit of time on Rightmove. It's very exciting because you can find some great properties for sale there for first-time buyers. London is the 17th most expensive city in the world to live. If you look at it by size, it's actually the most expensive city in the world to live. So naturally, we will assume that it's unaffordable. But with a lot of the initiatives that are out there now, things like shared ownership, help to buy, you can actually buy a first-time buyer flat in Clapham Junction. I spend quite a lot of time there on my way to Staines for £172,500, and then they can staircase. So this is affordable property for first-time buyers that can buy a share of it, and then at a later stage within their life they might want to staircase, they might want to sell, they might want to move up, but there are opportunities available. I also found a very interesting boathouse, which I thought was great, on the Thames there for £110,000. There are probably more in fees on top of that, but do you know what? You can buy a property. It is affordable, so it's not doom and gloom. It's not the end of the world. But then if you look by comparison, again, I've put some other numbers in there, which shows you properties in city centre Manchester. You can get a 2-bedroom flat for £110,000. So again, who doesn't have or can't afford to save up for a £11,000 deposit. So there are properties that are available for first-time buyers who want to live. If they want to live in a city centre, you move outside of the city centres, there's a lot more affordable as well. So again, people can and are, more importantly, are getting on the housing ladder, okay? If we look at the average age of first-time buyers, 72% are under 35. So we hear this, people are not leaving home until they're in their early 40s. Actually, yes, that band of individuals has grown, but if you look at this, the majority of people are still sat within that 25 to 34 age bracket. So people are still getting on the housing ladder. It's just the ones that are below it and above it maybe are choosing not to get onto the housing ladder until they're that little bit older. Okay, so you've got people that are within, students, or maybe just want to move whenever they want to move, as opposed to sticking within a particular area. Housing transactions, you probably all look at this on a regular basis, but these are the housing transactions. Every single area of housing transactions, the purchase housing transactions, are going down, with the exception of first-time buyers. So there is something good happening within this marketplace that is helping these people get onto the property ladder. So it does demonstrate that the market is stronger. Okay, so we've got a stronger housing market for first-time buyers. Why is that? So if we look now at Help to Buy in particular, we've got this scheme around at least till 2021. The chances are that they will probably do something beyond that will either be the same or very similar beyond 2021. But if you look at that, we've had 120,000 or over 120,000 housing transactions on Help to Buy, with over 4,000 of them being in London. So this scheme has stimulated the first-time buyer market without a doubt. Bank of Mum and Dad. Bank of Mum and Dad, this is now the 9th largest mortgage lender, which I find phenomenal. It's not just Bank of Mum and Dad, this is also Bank of Grandma and Grandad, who are kindly donating cash at this particular point in their lives to their grandchildren or children to allow them to get onto the housing ladder. It kind of helps them later on as well, because there might be some tax implications at a later stage. So this is helping our first-time buyers get onto the housing ladder. I mentioned earlier about the people buying together. Now we're starting to see, so Vida Home Loans, we will allow 4 applicants on one particular mortgage application, but we're starting to see young people buying together. So a great example of this is we've got 4 applicants on the mortgage. They're friends, they're buying together. They're buying together in London because that's their deemed only way of being able to afford these properties. And what's happening is after 3, 4, 5 years, they're selling the properties and they're taking the capital appreciation, or the likelihood is they'll take the appreciation out of that property, so that they then can start themselves individually. So these people are doing this. It could well be that over that 5-year term, things happen, they may change, the circumstances and relationships may change, they might have to do something a little bit quicker than that. But for all intents and purposes, this works really, really well for that first-time buyer who wants to buy with a friend and actually take some capital appreciation at a later stage. So just a little opportunity there to talk about. Shared ownership and affordable housing. Shared ownership used to have a massive stigma. It was kind of like it's the only duff property within the housing, the group of houses, because the developer has to put one in because that's what they've been told to do from a planning perspective. Very, very different now. They're not the only house that's next to the kids' park that, nobody wants to live in. These things have moved along and progressed massively. So there is no stigma remaining on shared ownership or on affordable type housing because of the fact that it's the best initiative to get some people onto the housing ladder. I've put there that we do now have 95% mortgages available for first-time buyers who are buying a new build. That's NatWest that have that particular product. So it's a high street lender that has a cracking product available to somebody who only has a 5% deposit. So there are alternatives to the Help to Buy scheme already coming to the market, and that will only grow. Builders and vendor gifted deposits. So again, that's a great scheme that's available. So you could have somebody who's taken a 5% gifted deposit from a builder. They have a 5% deposit in, and there we are, we've got a 90% loan to value. So again, that works as well. So there's other initiatives available that are not necessarily advertised. And I've put on their student schemes. The reason why I've put this on here is because we've started to see a growing number of mums and dads that are buying properties on a buy-to-let basis and allowing their son or daughter to live in that property, and providing they don't do more than or live in more than 40% of that property, that's perfectly fine. So they're thinking ahead and thinking, right, okay, we've got a buy-to-let opportunity here. For short term, it will help me with my child, but then longer term, we've got a solution. One thing that's not on there, which again is a great opportunity, is the first-time buyer, first-time landlord. So we've now found that a lot of first-time buyers think, actually, I want to rent. I'm quite comfortable renting because I don't know how long I'm going to stay here for, but I do want to get onto the property ladder. So they can then do a buy-to-let as a first-time buyer, first-time landlord. So they can remain in their rental accommodation and they can buy another property that they then later they rent out. And that's absolutely fine. We'll do that providing it stacks up on a residential affordability test. And there's a number of other lenders that will do the same thing. So it could well be that they're just choosing not to buy and they'll go through that. I've put a stat on there. So of all of our house purchases that have gone through Vida in the last 12 months, David mentioned our first year anniversary. He said second year. It's been a long time, but it's not been that long. So it's a first year anniversary. 42% of our transactions are to first time buyers. We only lend up to 85% loan to value. So if you think about it, there's lots of other initiatives that are clearly coming to the market that are helping these people to either raise the deposits or other initiatives through builder schemes, etc. So what's the opportunity? So this is probably the bit for you guys that's most important. What is around and about? So if you look at your existing client banks, and you've probably got an aging population within your existing client banks, everybody does have, they might think that they've got kids that are going to be living with them forever. And probably tell you they're sick of Johnny that doesn't, put his underpants in the wash when he should be doing. He's leaving them out and it's driving them mad. This is an opportunity to talk to them about how they can help their younger children to get onto the housing ladder. Again, gifted deposit schemes, everybody's happy with them, or largely happy with them now. So if mum and dad are given a gift for son or daughter to get onto the housing ladder, absolutely fine. Just on that, amateur landlords as well. If you have any of your amateur landlords, David mentioned earlier about the taxation changes. The chances are amateur landlords, unless they've got a property that is going to appreciate in value over a term, the chances are they're probably going to try and get rid of those properties. So there's an opportunity to boost the first-time buyer property range out and about there as these taxation changes come into play. So if you do have any amateur landlords that are on your books, it might be to start thinking about how they're going to dispose of these properties, and you've got groupings and networkings that are available to you there. Colleges and universities, the chances are that the people that are sat in colleges and universities are so uneducated when it comes to financial aspects of their world. We all know this. I know you're laughing there because it's true. And you probably come across them. The worst people to work with as far as financial advice is concerned are teachers and doctors. They're horrendous because they haven't got a clue, but they, of course, have spent a lot of time on Google. And students, they have no idea whatsoever. So starting to talk to these people or to build relationships with local universities, colleges, etc., and talk to them early, give them some sort of insight as to what the world looks like in the housing market. Great opportunity to, again, build some networks for you. I put local corporations and businesses, the same thing. If they're bringing in student graduates, coming in to talk to them about the housing market and how you can help them get onto the housing ladder. And the same thing with most of the other things here. What you also find, though, is that some very small builders and developers that are cropping up in various different places and don't have arrangements with intermediaries. They'll have arrangements if they're a big Barrett or Persimmon, etc., but the smaller SMEs don't tend to have relationships with individual brokers. So a great opportunity for you to get to know these people and to help them, not just the first time buyer piece, but to help them across the board in providing mortgage advice. The biggest thing that we come across is that it is about communication and education, because we have a fear that nobody can get onto the property ladder. So we hear about there's no appropriate housing, we've got a housing shortage. Yes, we have. There's an absolute shortage of stock. There is no denying that. But the bottom line is that there is stock available. the first-time buyers can get onto the property ladder because they're bucking the trend in every other property purchase. So all I would say from this, and the message from me, is that, don't dismiss it, because there are opportunities for these people to get onto the housing ladder, but you need to help them, you need to educate them, and you need to guide them, but there are opportunities afoot. That's me.